We're starting the show today with something that, Anthony, quite frankly, we have had in our back pocket since way before I left for France. This was something we thought of as a summer topic, and we kept pushing it off because there was stuff to talk about that I thought was more important and pertinent in every show since we thought about it. And finally, we get to a point where if we don't use it now, it's never going to happen. And I think this is actually the best time to do it, right before the season. The simple premise is this. What are the best and worst case scenarios for the Commanders this year in regards to some of their new additions? Now, let's remember, the Commanders are almost entirely new additions. They have more roster turnover than any other team in the NFL by a significant margin, by 5 or 6% on a 53-player roster. So there is a lot of different directions we could go here in terms of new players. But Anthony, I'll let you be the dealer here, dealer's choice. Who do we want to talk about first? It could be a rookie, it could be a veteran acquisition, but if it goes really well, this is what it looks like, and this is what it means for the team. If it goes really poorly, this is what it looks like, and this is what it means for the team.
I'll start off with a layup. Brandon Coleman.
Oh wow, that wasn't the layup. That's at least like a Euro step. I figured you might, if you're going to go on layup, you probably go with Jayden Daniels.
Yeah.
But no, Brandon Coleman's a good one. He's an interesting one because I actually don't know that the swing is quite as wild. And that is, because unlike some of these other guys we're going to talk about, there's a floor underneath Brandon Coleman, and that floor is named Cornelius Lucas, right? So if best case scenario, I think, is really actually impactful, not just in the short term, but the long term. The best case scenario for Brandon Coleman is he is, I think, not great, but in year one, a very solid left tackle with the potential upside to be great with some more experience. I highly doubt that a third-round pick is going to come in with very limited training camp because of an injury and be incredible from day one, where all of a sudden we're like, man, this guy played at a Pro Bowl level, and he's not, like, you don't get recognition as an offensive lineman probably till at least 2 years after you deserve it. It's just kind of the nature of the position. It's not one that people pay as close of attention to, and there's not counting stats to back stuff up in the way that you have receptions or rushing yards or touchdowns for other positions. But I think Brandon Coleman could, with his athleticism, when used properly, be really effective. Let's call it B+ across the board. That's a bunch of A games, maybe a couple of rookie moments against some tougher rushers, but B+ tackle play across the year, plays all 17 games, and most importantly, definitively says, this is my spot for the future. That in the future, you don't need to draft a tackle. You don't need to spend a first rounder on it next year. You can go draft a receiver, draft a right tackle if you want to, if you don't get a good play out of Wiley, or if you want to upgrade on Wiley. You can go draft an edge rusher. You can go draft a corner, whatever it is that they decide they need after the year. Not having to feel like you need a left tackle in next year's draft is the most important thing that Brandon Coleman can accomplish this year. By the other end of the coin, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is he's so bad that he's unplayable. Lucas winds up coming in so you don't get Jayden murdered, and you have to go into next year needing the best tackle in the class. By the way, the guy who protected Jayden at LSU last year, the number one tackle by most people's boards is the left tackle at LSU. Now I'm forgetting his name, but that's the guy. And you have to hope that you get a high enough draft pick to get a really good quality tackle, which is really hard. I mean, you see, if you're drafting like 12, you might get the second or third tackle off the board, and you're certainly not getting the kid at LSU. So that would be the worst case scenario, is Coleman's future is as a backup, which for a third round pick wouldn't be heinous, but that his future is as a backup tackle, or you bump him inside to guard and you come out of this season having played Cornelius Lucas a ton, which comes with its own limitations, and needing a left tackle in the draft next year. I think that's best case, worst case for Coleman. And for the team, it's the difference potential. Like, I actually don't know how much it swings it in terms of wins. Like, if Coleman's awesome, sure, it sets up a bunch of other pieces to play well to the point that you're talking about closer to 9 or 10 wins. But you could have Coleman be bad, Lucas be good, and still win 8 games. So I don't think the swing is as reliant on that position, even if the future could be massively defined by how he plays this year.
You covered majority of the bases.
That's my job, Anthony.
Yeah.
You toss him up, I just
knock it out of the park.
boom.
Or as Mike Breen would say, bang.
That really started more on a boing track than a bang track.
Okay.
Bang. Unless we're gonna hit lefty today. We're switch hitter. Boom. Were you a switch hitter growing up?
No. I stayed on one side of the plate.
You're righty?
I actually only played one year of baseball, though. So
Oh.
I don't know if that really counts.
No. I mean, it counts. Counts for that year.
Yeah.
I played a little bit more than that. But I didn't, like, ninth grade was the last year I played organized baseball.
Oh, eighth
But
grade for me.
I did mess around hitting lefty some. Good times. Good times. Who's next on your list that we would like to explore?
All right. Next is Cliff Kingsbury.
You're just trying to, like,
We're going to save Jayden for last.
it's not even that. I didn't think coaches were on the table.
All right. Hey, look, we don't have to. We don't have to.
Look, I can make it quick. I can make this one quick.
All right, real quick.
If Cliff is at his best, then Jayden's going to have a really, really great rookie year. He's going to be in the mix for rookie of the year. This offense is going to score well over 20 points a game. Like, we're talking like 22 to 24 points a game. And he'll utilize, like, Terry's going to have a monster year. If Cliff is at his worst, they'll probably start fine. We'll see a bunch of promise, and then defense is going to catch on, and it's going to be a really rough December and January. That is the difference in this team winning 5 or 6 games or this team winning 10 or 11 games. So, yeah, the coordinator is important. The reason I don't think talking about the coordinator is that exciting in this exercise is that's every coordinator,
Yep.
specifically every offensive coordinator in the entire league, whether they're new or not.
That's fair. All right, we're going to hard pivot. Jayden Daniels, your guy.
Okay, Jayden Daniels.
This one's going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, this is not that different from any quarterback in terms of the importance to their team, right? If Jayden plays his absolute best, this team could win 10, 11 games. If Jayden does not play his best, then they're going to not win a lot of games. So that is the obvious team thing. As for what that actually looks like, because that wasn't very specific or insightful analysis, I think the best version of Jayden is one that is aggressive in pushing the ball down the field, continuously gives guys a lot of vertical shots, is on time regularly. He actually he's not making a ton of plays off schedule because he doesn't have to. I think and that's specific to Jayden, right? Is he's not a guy that is going to have a long time to throw number. That's one of the numbers I'm going to be tracking for him this year. Is like, how often is he getting rid of the ball in under 3 seconds? And I want him to have one of the better rates in the league. One, I think schematically, to go back to Cliff and rope him back in, I think the screen game is going to be a big part of what they do, and that obviously brings that average down. But I also think Jayden doesn't need a lot of time to read the field. He's very, very good at processing things quickly. And even when he's aggressive throwing the ball down the field, he makes up his mind and he gets the ball out, which I think is ultimately a good thing. Because, for instance, I was watching a bunch of Baker Mayfield stuff this morning. I was watching all his deep throws last year. And there are times where he's really good at this, where he just is like, I'm going deep here. And he gets the ball out, and that middle field safety or even a cover 2 safety can't get to a ball on the sideline because it's thrown decisively enough, and that also saves pressure from being an issue. Well, Baker's accuracy left some to be desired, to say the least, and that's why Tampa is not a more potent offense and why Baker has been a little more hit or miss as a guy throughout his career, is that accuracy can come and go for him in a way that I think the best version of Jayden is far more consistent. I think also, obviously, we'll see some of the middle of the field reading and some of the layering of throws that you didn't see as much in college because the game's going to demand that of him and he steps up to that plate. The worst version of Jayden Daniels this year struggles with all of that. Struggles with getting the ball out on time. It's a little muddy for him. I think the worst version of Jayden Daniels this year probably winds up running quite a bit because he just doesn't see it cleanly and he's like, screw it. And that still might be effective to a point, but I think there are diminishing returns there versus just getting the ball out quickly to the playmakers. It's one that probably falls a little too in love with Terry McLaurin, which I didn't think was possible after the ignorance of Terry the last couple of years in terms of OCs ignoring the fact that they have an incredible player on the outside. But I think he could overlock into him, and that could, cause a couple of extra picks and turnovers. I think the worst version of Jayden probably takes more hits than you like. And if we're being honest with the repercussions of that, the worst version of Jayden probably doesn't finish the season. That's not the version I anticipate. And again, that version wins you 5-6 games. The best version wins you 10 or 11. And realistically, he'll probably be somewhere in the middle, and they win, somewhere between 7 and 9 games. And Jayden hopefully progresses as the year goes, and things just get cleaner and better and more efficient, and they do a good job of managing him, and the season gets to be called a success whether they make the playoffs or not.
Dang, you got me excited for this season.
Let's go.
Next player I will want to do a best case, worst case on would have to be Mikey Sainristil.
Okay, then we're going to get out of the rookie realm. There's 2 vets I want to talk about, and if you're not going to pick them, I will. I think you know who they are, though.
Yes.
Okay, Sainristil. So here's... Let me ask you a question. Let me answer your question with a question. Is the best version of Mike Sainristil playing inside and outside, or is he just owning the slot? Snap in, snap out. 70+% of snaps that he plays. Because I think the best thing for the team is that he doesn't, right? The best thing for the team is that Forbes and BSJ are good enough that Sainristil doesn't have to play multiple roles. That when there's 2 corners on the field, he just gets to rest. That he's not actually out there. Then he comes in nickel situations, which will be a lot. It will be the predominant number of snaps this year. He'll play more than he sits. As long as he's healthy, right? And I think the best version of that Mike Sainristil is someone who creates, let's say, 5+ turnovers. Maybe it's 3 interceptions, a forced fumble in the field of play, and he gets a strip sack at some point blitzing off the corner, right? It's a guy that you can rely upon in the run game as a corner to come up and make tackles and fit runs and make life miserable for offensive linemen that are out in space trying to get him. Like, you think you got him, nope, he slithers around you, and now all of a sudden he's making a tackle at the line of scrimmage. I think that's the best version of Mike Sainristil, and one that continues to help everybody get organized, is a good communicator. I don't know that he'll be like team captain by the end of the year because there's too many other good vets around that he doesn't need to do that. But like, we all know that in the future, he's going to be that. He and Jayden are the 2 guys that are going to lead this franchise if they get where they want to go, like literally lead it. So I think the best version of Sainristil, for the team, he affects winning. If he really struggles, that could be an issue. But he's a corner. He's 1 or 2 games from best to worst. Realistically, how much does it change any particular outcome? But I think he'll make some game-changing plays, create some turnovers, and he doesn't get beat a lot, right? Like, that's the other thing too, is like he's consistent on top of that. I think the worst version of Sainristil in his rookie year is the game's a bit much for him, and he's got to figure out how to play at his size. That in the run game, teams are able to take advantage of him. They also figure out in the pass game that maybe some bigger receivers can hit certain routes on him, and he doesn't quite have the length to make up for it. Again, do I think that's going to happen? No, especially the latter. I think some teams will probably get him in the run game. He's a rookie. He's going to learn. It's hard. It's hard for the best nickels in the league. So it's going to be hard for him as a rookie, even if his compete level's, 11 out of 10. But realistically, if we're doing best case, worst case, like, he gives up some big plays, especially in big spots. He's unreliable in coverage on 3rd down when a lot of teams attack the slot, and teams take advantage of him in the run game. That would be the worst version of a Mike Sainristil rookie season. I don't think that's going to happen consistently. I do think it'll probably happen some. Like, if where's the middle of the reality, I think it probably happens some. But that's life in the NFL when you're a rookie. So as long as it gets better as the year goes, that's success for Mike Sainristil.
I think if he starts the season strong in the slot, I would not be opposed to seeing him in 2 cornerback sets, just because he sort of kind of is asserting himself as our best corner. A lot of the best corners in the NFL, they're starting to play that star role or, in the nickel, and then like in 2 cornerback sets, they go back to the outside. So if he wants to be like a Marlon Humphrey, a Kenny Moore, a Jalen Ramsey, a Jair Alexander, Marshawn Lattimore.
Most of those guys have size, though. That's the thing. Is he's so.
But Jair's a little small. Marlon Humphrey.
Jair's got length, though.
Yeah, he do.
So
and Marlon.
Yeah, so
they're a little bit bigger.
They're definitely a little bit bigger. I'm not telling you it's the best thing for the team is obviously that St. Juice and Forbes are both excellent. But I don't think it's a terrible thing if he winds up playing out on the outside. If he's actually good at it. If he earns it, that he's really, really good, and they're not just doing it because it's like, he's better than these other two schmucks, then that's fine. And to be clear, I do not think that BSJ and Forbes are schmucks. I'm actually really excited to see what happens with them this year. All right, last but not least, who do you want, Wagner first or you want Ertz first?
I think we should go Wagner and actually go Ertz, then end with Wagner.
Okay, so the best version of Zach Ertz is a Pro Bowl tight end. And I know that might sound crazy, but like this dude in camp was killing people. He has a great rapport with Jayden Daniels. He was really effective in the red zone. And we're talking about a guy that, has 65 to 80 catches, 7 or 8 touchdowns, is a consistent threat, and he stays on the field all year. The worst case is, let's be real, he gets banged up, he's never quite right, and he's just not that effective. That they try to get the ball to him in big spots, he can't separate, he can't get open, it's not there, and he's not offering you a lot as a blocker, and he's just kind of a veteran that's taking up a roster spot. And I think he'll be a good soldier. I think where he's at this point in his career, like if he realizes he don't got it, then we'll see what that means by the end of the year. But he came into this camp healthy. He looked phenomenal in camp. I'm not saying that you're going to have 60 or 75 catches and 8 touchdowns from Zach Ertz, but like if you told me that he misses 3 games and if you extrapolate his numbers over 17 games, he would have had that, I'd believe that in a second. So I'm pretty pumped for Zach Ertz. And that, by the way, could be the difference in winning 9 games versus 6 games. Like he could be that important to this team. Third downs, red zone, etc. Bobby Wagner, I think Bobby Wagner might have the biggest best case, worst case swing on the entire team. Best case scenario, he's still 90% of Bobby Wagner. He led the NFL in tackles last year. Could he do that again? Yeah, he did it last year. And then maybe they find ways to make sure that he can still do what he needs to do in coverage, and he's still a Pro Bowl caliber player. Maybe he's not all pro anymore. Maybe he's not the best. He's not Fred Warner, but like he's a damn good football player. The worst case scenario is he fell off the cliff and he's cooked. And again, am I predicting that? No. I don't want Bobby Wagner coming for me saying, I heard you said I was cooked. I didn't say that. I just said the reality is at this age of being a football player in the NFL, eventually you get to a stage where you can't do it anymore. And if Bobby Wagner gets to that and he's cooked, this team better hope that Jordan McGee is really ready to play a lot of football and that Bobby Wagner is an excellent quasi-coach. Realistically, I think he'll probably be closer to the guy he was last year. I think he knows how to take care of his body. I think Bobby Wagner is a guy that will probably wind up retiring because he wants to, not because he has to. That would be my guess. He's definitely not A-plus Hall of Fame level Bobby Wagner anymore, but is he a top half of the NFL middle linebacker? Hell yeah, he is, or he was last year. So that's the best case scenario or the most likely scenario for Bobby Wagner. And again, difference in a game or two from best case to worst case, probably in the win column.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.